Ntate Leoma Monaheng.
Yeah.
Sapo.
Shabu kunjani?
Sharp. Okay, welcome once again to OurSphere podcast.
Thank you for inviting me, or did I force myself in? I'm not sure, but thank you either way.
Whatever it is, you are here.
There? Yeah.
I'm happy that you are here. Yes, sir. Okay, Lao no son zotlile on the podcast. But yeah, we have a tradition, as you know. Yeah, re tell pele. So kalo it's okay.
I won't lie, now I'm 54 blind. There's a lot. But yeah, let's go.
It's okay.
Yeah. I'm a dila.
Waza
Boy.
ofutela
I'm a ziapul.
tell la here.
Ke thelele ngile Monaheng wa nkopana mathunya khagane kgetha khotho ke shita rala zona but ke tlela ka diengele. Yeah, I think we'll get into it. There's a lot, but
Yeah. Well, I mean, when I into like how we bua do you in terms of identity a hola ke some of the things they long gore bo hotel la ine le ntwe long gore se diswa o identify gore na okay mamang o hla kae mamang o hla kae I want yeah when how we kopanya la identity yeah how somehow o relate ha kae le yona kapo.
This is why it always confuses me. I've had to do a very deep search as to who I am. Right? So, in terms of the history behind that name, Kadi Leoma so Moshoeshoe I, you understand? And also we have to get into Tawahore. This was a time where surnames were brought by colonial institutions. So basically, Kadi ke Kadi wa Tsholwane. Tsholwane ke Tsholwane wa Molemo. Molemo kwa Motebang kwa Napo. Ke kata ho Napo because from Napo that's where we get the travel from Botswana to here to Mtswana, which is actually in the Free State, you know. So for me, how to get tell it, I've always wondered because I think we say it but we don't understand. How it sounds good, but why if we understand that those elements. So when you find someone like Kadi, because when Kadi got here to a place like Lesotho, he found a Khoi chieftain who actually said to him, if you want my land, mpe Monaheng una waka. In fact, mpe matakwane ke tla o fa Monaheng una waka. Monaheng because we have to understand that Sesotho kana ko ene ka nna ba ke puo ene petepetetso ha ke. So ha re Monaheng he means the land, but ha khone hore naha ena yaka. So it was actually a transaction. The Khoi leader said, give me your cannabis and I'll give you this land. And that's when Kadi became Monaheng. You know, so that's a little bit about how, for me, I have to like dig very deeply. That's why I always say Monaheng wa khagane kgetha khotho, because ke tsa ba khagane, ke tsa ba kgetha, ke tsa ba ha khotho, tsa ba nkopana. As to haya eteba, ya tlase, it gets tricky for me.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, ke hona le ke wena hore itlano there's wisdom actually kapa not necessarily wisdom, wisdom of course, but ke more of storytelling kara the totemic praises the boko I want so like when I'm for the first time hageka ishane ke ba curious so oh really because in all I'm breakela down you know we had Alvin on a podcast but ke before then but Alvin ola hlalosa lena ibila a hlalosa hore na how did that come about ha tell o tlotla hlalosa hore monna moholo patsa o nana le bagadi so like o khona we narrate and I think lo khutlela ho motho a tla a o hlalosetse rena le dibuka ne tse leng hore nako ngwe di ngotse diboko tsena mare nako nngwe ha di manolle that much gore o keteletse o tseba gore okay why ana re ga gane kgetha kgothu you know like something like that wa bona so yeah but ke fumana gore it's interesting cause yena gore o e qoqetse wa bona ha ntsa e batlisisa so yeah ke ke le interested o fumana bo ntho tse kang tseno nna ke ka guessa fela ka sa ka gore oh perhaps this and this but like ke try o fumana through the words but I don't know the actual thing but I'm still curious to even find out what is it about it. Yeah.
I think when it comes to, let's say, let me give you an example, right? Some cultures are very, very adamant as to their own culture and as to understanding where they come from. So you have books, right? That will explain, like the Torah for like the Jewish community, the Bible, let's say, for like the Christian community. There are all these letters and everything else. But then when it comes to us as Basotho, the question would be, why? You understand what I'm saying? Like, Monaheng, but why Monaheng? Like, you see that we literally live in a country that has less opportunities. But why is that? Why is it that when you walk outside, you might be in a realm whereby it's easier to find a business that's owned by an Asian person within the community than the business that is owned by a Moshoeshoe person, right? Do we understand our own theologies, our own religions? So Ntswana Tsatsi, a lot of people think that Ntswana Tsatsi is somewhere in the middle of Africa, right? Because Basotho or Bantu people migrated from Cameroon down to here to Lesotho, but Ntswana Tsatsi is actually in the Free State. You understand? Actually, like when you read further, when you read an Ellenberger, you find that the very first Mosotho na bitwa Mopedi. O teki Mopedi Lome, because he actually committed a great sin. So Lome is an inclination of that great sin. You understand? So for me, it's much more as to what do I represent as a person. So even though the clan names give me a little bit of a problem, but I actually represent through my initiatives like Sankofa a mission to tell some of these stories and their values and why these stories are important.
Yeah, and one of the interesting stories ke Bo Mohlomi, of which Mohlomi was one of the great African leaders, couple philosophers during his time, and I think even some of the foundations still are actually built with the current Lesotho the backbone ya thing, because there was upon a time when I read on him, he even actually sort of mentored Moshoeshoe himself, and Amoruta, like even the approach to basically form this nation we stand on today.
Yeah. So this is what you find. I think you and I have like a lot of discussions, and I'm always like, no, man, just there's a value in being different. There's a need, because we live in a world where everyone is just the same. So what Mohlomi represented in his time was someone that was vastly different from anything else that had been seen. So I had mentioned Napa Atswala, Motebang Atswala, Molemo Atswala. Yeah, Molemo Atswala, Tsholwane Atswala, Kadi Atswala Monyane Atswala Mohlomi. That's also the family lineage from which Moshoeshoe comes from, right? But we'll have time for that if we do. So Mohlomi was born around 1720 in a place called Modile, Carindale, Krokoland. His father, Monyane, was a man of force, but Mohlomi was said to be a different child because from the moment that he was born and he was cared for by his grandmother and grandfather, he showed skills of diplomacy, right? He was a soft child by any means and measure. And this is a time where in as much as it was before the Fakane, there was a lot of contention, right? But being a soft child, it is said that during initiation period, vision, in which he was carried by a great eagle. Yeah, but this great eagle carried him. And what they actually told him was that for him, in order to be an effective leader, he had to spread the word of peace, right? So we could take it multiple ways, right? Moshoeshoe is called the Socrates of Africa by Max Dupree, but now I rather call him the Mohlomi of Africa. Because now, there's a value in us standing by batho be leng hore ebe ke batho ba re feeling tsebo le khanya le pono le khotso pula nala, you understand? So I'm always of that inclination, like, no, let's protect what he stood for. So mohlala ntho ntso buang ka tsona tsa hore na how was he different ka ponto tse ke le tsa buang ka tsona. He said to have been one of the first chiefs that had said that it's better to thrash the corn than to sharpen the blade. That means that he disbanded his army.
Yeah.
And what most people don't understand is that Tausua one night Lord Tausua was flat and was top low. He had a flat top. No one defeated Moshoeshoe once Moshoeshoe I Tausua. But he never went to war with anyone. So he literally built a nation out of peace and not war. He deviated from like Bo Mziligazi. He deviated from, and these are his peers, he deviated from Shaka. He actually built a kingdom by allowing people in. Bo Borakatwane, Habajilin Tatamo, no, Kenang, you understand? So those are the elements that actually make him one of the greatest philosophers of any period of any time.
And ibila hake there is somewhere I read more thing ibile ke and I basically ha go do me sa ke re khotso I wanna when I read in Rabaning, he's one of those people elong go creatile that thing okay, if you see me then ke re khotso,
yeah, I come in peace,
you know, yeah, I come in peace,
yeah.
So like ke hlokomela, wow, like he had such a great impact. And some of these stories it's like we need to, it's easier or come across some legend somewhere in the world, you know, and then read on him, but not so much. And it's good to reference some of the leaders, some of the great people that existed on this earth. Some of them are not from our nation, but also I feel like it's so important to even embrace ours and okay, and what did it take even for us to be here in the first place?
We were given something that was called the Bantu education system. The Bantu education system literally meant that we were formed or were molded to become workers, right? That speaks to a lot of things. That speaks to taking out your own heroes from your history books. So that we don't know who Ntshekga was. So that Hankare, Mohlomi, dog, this is one of the most important philosophers of sub-Saharan Africa, but we don't know who he was.
Yeah, right.
You understand? So there's an importance in, actually, I was asked by someone in the team right now about what's happening in the world and what's happening in Africa right now. So the term of the Bantu education system, it meant that you are taken out of the curriculum so that you do not see yourself as being great. You understand? So that you do not see their own leaders. You don't see anyone that was not subjugated. So we don't know about, like, let's say in Ethiopia, it was never colonized. You understand? We don't know that the Great Walls of Benin were 4 times larger than the Great Walls of China. It's actually taken out of the curriculum so that when you meet a white person, you actually feel inferior, right? So that also speaks to the importance of, like, let's say Mohlomi, who Mohlomi was and what he represented in terms of our cultural values. Because this is why I had said it was important for us to run down the lineage, right? I mentioned that Kadula Atwala Munyani Atwala Mohlomi. But Kadi Ola Atwala Mokrang Atwala Bete Atwala Makachane atswala Moshoeshoe. So within that lineage, we could say, and that Mohlomi was actually a great grand uncle to Moshoeshoe. So Mohlomi in a little poko pele, Moshoeshoe, forgive me, Moshoeshoe in a little poko pele. The poko as a young man was said to have been very violent. Hence his being taken by his grandfather Pete to Mohlomi, someone that had a worldview that was very vastly different from that time. Yeah, you understand? So when they had met, Moshoeshoe le Mohlomi, Moshoeshoe na nahana hore Mohlomi o tlo mo fa moriana wa go busa, because he was very violent, but ona batla. That's why le lebitso la hae la Moshoeshoe I le hlanga hapa dikgomo tsa ga Monaheng. Even like as a diss song, like it's a rap battle sort of. Like, no, dog, I took everything from you. I'm Frostana. Like, I shaved you of your manhood, basically.
Right.
So his name is from a point of toughness. So I'm Frostana. Like, no, I'm that dude. So, haya ho Mohlomi. Ona ya Mohlomi yana na profumana mkiyena, because Mohlomi was also like, let's say a seer, and he was known to have mystic powers or right? Ona to fumana mukiyana, like, you know, which ho miriana ubusa chaba ona miriana ona na ihlabelo fi. But he found something that was different. Ela how kopana le Mohlomi told him that haona miriana ubusa chaba ko se tseba go se rata. So everything that Moshoeshoe did after meeting Mohlomi was in line le go bopa setšhaba ka khotso le ka tshebedisano mmogo. So you have umatseba, you have umukobobo, you have all of these other systems in play.
How work out, like you somehow we're taught not to see ourselves in that light, or we can be great couple, we are great, and you cannot even look at your leaders or so basically you can look from the outside, of which honestly some of the things they I'm aware of. Okay, if ke batla ho nyenyefatsa, like let's say ke batla ho explain fela no, I'm not intelligent, kapa I'm just a person, ke go ke monna Mosotho fela, you know. And okay, this is very interesting. Why ha ke tlotla ke refera to in ho ba in theory ya kapo ke tlotla ke reference ke monna Mosotho fela tjena, and mohlala o mong hape ka nna bo bore like mohlala, let's say you are my employer, ke tlo reng o le khwala ne, meaning you are bigger than
superior
me.
to me.
Yeah, you are superior to me, and it's like, okay, vocabulary ga ona le ona e sentse e re isa tlase, and I'm like, okay, perhaps, yeah, I mean, it may have been invented ka nako e itseng, but we even carry ourselves like ke go le khwala ka, and ke batla isane ho emphasize no ke motho my boss and I'm like, okay, why, and without realizing ke nahana hore some of those things di etsa hore le gona re ketelletse continually re ikera ka tsela eno e leng hore etsa ha ke bona le goa, of course ke konana ka tsela e itseng compared to ha ke bona motho a motho ke kotla monna Mosotho fela, you know.
We're basically the boundary education system and everything other than everything else from the Western hypothesis of building the Negro or building the Kafir on Frostad was actually meant for you to think that you are inferior from the very beginning. You understand? So the education system would say, okay, you know, what do you identify as or backward? You identified into the African way, and the African way is demonized, you know, but you are actually not a person. You are actually a level just underneath a person, so that you do not question systematically what's going on around you. Like if you talk move from guy Kingsway, ne? Let's say you're driving, right? To this point, Pioneer Mall, you can count in like 2 hands the business it's own. But we don't question them. You go to a car lot, you don't question that this car lot has some. In fact, Basotho checked out in Lesotho. You understand what I'm saying? So the efforts that we have to make would be for us to actually reconfigure that thinking on a daily basis on what do we stand for as Basotho and what do we stand for as Africans. Because what the neo-colonist thinking is actually doing is repurposing everything that was actually African and coming with it kind of different name. Just like whenever I but we call them by a different name now. I don't know what we call them by. I don't know, hot pants, I don't know, skinny jeans, or whatever the case might be. In the same way, these very same elements of Afrocentricity are getting repurposed and they're getting fed back to us. Like the organic blind I just get us, the organic, so they have a higher price range. Things that you're already doing, you understand, indigenous knowledge systems. This system in an area it's self-ventilating, it's something else. No, it's a self-ventilating Polish system. I wish you're like,
yeah, I mean, also, it's almost like, okay, how many of Basotho people are dependent on farming? There's one interesting person who said to me, agriculture is one of the get the start of civilization. Because think about it, when do you even start thinking about art or lapil, It's like, how do you even say tap into your purpose? Or lapil, you don't have time to do that. Like, the only thing you can be stuck on survival. Like, you want to survive, so all these things, they are distracted, and I'm like, okay, how do you even shift focus here? How? Because we have Lesotho le Basotho. Population thing ingata. Some of the people ba Masero, yes, of course, ba hlahetse mona Masero, ba hlahetse ditrekeng tse ding. Of course, for people to even come here, and many of us think about it like that, and we think the greener pastures, of which, when I really step back and think about it, I'm like, we are just going to be here and thinking, okay, this is my way out, and I stuck there, and I get a job, and I get to be stuck cycling without me knowing. 10 years have passed, 20 years have passed, and
yes,
pretty much, of course, ke super, or secondly TV, secondly couch, secondly bed, but like,
you're chasing something that you'll always be chasing.
Yeah.
That you'll never hand down.
Yeah. And it's enslaving because I find freedom. Okay, because first of all, we need to survive.
Yeah.
But after surviving, then we have to thrive.
Yeah.
But you cannot thrive while you are still trying to survive. And always stuck continually you demand to be present here every time, You cannot step back and be like, okay, I'm taking a vacation for like, you know, you don't have that privilege.
I'll let you know something, man. When we speak on when we speak on communities, ne? And when we speak on communities that are well established, right? There are a couple of communities that actually come up, right? We'll say maybe the Chinese community collectively. We'll say the Jewish communities. Locally, we'll say, let's just say the Boer community, right? In SA. Here's something that most people don't understand. The Boers, or the Boer community, or the white minority, owns about 70% of fertile land in South Africa, in the country of South Africa. 70% of fertile land. That's why, and then we went to a farm, my partner and I. And then, like, literally, the workers told us that family owns thousands of hectares of this land. They went on a helicopter and started hunting like jackals. And I was just like, but how about the hunter guy? I'm like, the land is that large. And I think there's an element of how much your identity then says about what you will accomplish and what your future generations will accomplish. So let's just say someone born out of like, that is the system that they live in. Like, let's just say if they're Jewish, then they deal with a mercantile type of system. Money, banking, they understand. You understand? Even if they're like, let's say the Indian community, they deal with like, okay, we'll own shops in these segregated communities. 7-Eleven, there's money to be made there. Let's say if you're Boers, then we'll be farmers. And there's no in a flex already farmer around. Katla parampetso tsa rona tsa batho re ke mabuo wena o tla mpona ke hlamane ne ngwana ngwana nona o kganna 4x4 ehle o dala sa high blind ga utlwisisa but wena ha o le mtomnyama o thiaga e ba ntho eno nya ho wa swabela ona trade hona ke entle. So you can grow from that essentially. So what will you take? You will take, okay, what is the nearest thing I can latch onto? Status. Status. So the next thing I'll latch on to, like, it's an office gig. First time. So it's like, you know, do officing, bang. But then in the effort to bang even really kisana, into new ilungwe, even haro kopane, a catalyst rebale, go to the already fixed check. Fixed check says that Harley shop or real shop ya mutsing, harono kopane, we rebuild a chain, ya shop zedi. Then I want to open some and then we won't build from that. You understand? So we are highly individualistic in that way. But can you blame us? Like, can you literally blame us?
Well, okay, I wouldn't say, not to be honest, I wouldn't say I will blame us specifically, but I would say sometimes you know what? When you have gone through like an unfortunate time in your life,
for sure,
I mean that situation made you who you are,
for sure.
But I think also it's on you to actually realize, oh, okay, I went through this, and it's like it's a traumatic thing that happened in your life. It's like, but am I always going to be victim and why why o sa kgone go ye o na le land o sa kgone go itemela and actually eat from that? You rather be employed masimong a mamang essay ne not a how, you know, how it's like, yeah, I mean, it looks like greener pastures, but my thing is, I realize who I am and how this thing affected me. I would say, yeah, I can blame myself for not taking responsibility as far as responsibility is concerned, but I wouldn't blame me for what happened to me, but I would look into the responsibility then if this thing happened to me, then what is my responsibility? to make sure I get out of this, you know?
Your responsibility comes only when you know something.
Yeah.
People are actually doing their best, but they're doing their best from the point of what they know,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So this is why platforms like these are so important.
Yeah.
Because platforms like these actually teach you. Like, somewhere during our colonization by the British, there's a wonderful historian by the name of Professor Sean Madie here that explains this at length, right? Basotho more while they were actually building their own collective corporacy, to actually getting to in bulk, but these things were made illegal by the institution that were there. They were made illegal from book up and said, oh no, until and high disintegrate. And then it became politicized. And then whenever the general Mohlomi shop, but we don't understand you understand? It's historical. And then some people are actually meant to actually teach, or like myself, some people actually said meant to speak on these things so that someone can wake up over there like, oh, okay, what can I do? Or what can this next generation do?
Yeah, then why Basotho basakopani then, according to you?
I mean, it has to be taken down at length. It has to be taken. This goes back to the conversation that we had in terms of Moshoeshoe, the institutions that Moshoeshoe put in place. Moshoeshoe put in place Bumatse. You understand? You, as the village, worked collectively in one person who was mostly women, elderly women, and orphans. Because Poto hawana matla akere ono sebetsa masimong so that collectively ba fuwe dijo, collectively motse o tsebe go go akere hona system ono to ke mokobobo. I think mokobobo is where these orphans and the elderly were given a welfare system. They were given food, they were given clothes, they were given places to stay. Mafisa ono fuwa khomo ono kanwa khomo ena ha e tswala ebe you keep. You understand?
No.
But then, this is the thing about colonization. Colonization came in 3 C's. Christianity, commerce, and civilization. So I feel like system is really thing. But it's penetrate ka system ya hore no, we want the individual to own. Because when the individual owns, then that's divide and conquer. No, the land is collectively owned. We don't want to deal with a collective system. We want to deal with an individualistic system so that it's much, much easier for me to bribe you. And then umpe masimu yana hawana kaofela. But I was about masimu yana hasiak. Masimu ya chapa. I'm only the guardian up until a certain pinpoint in time. Then it makes it harder for those cleavages to come through. But then these are some of the systems they meant to divide and conquer. So divide and conquer. The Christians once they say it's demonic, then you know how we are. We don't even understand conceptually you understand what I'm saying? So it's much, much easier to form those cleavages. Even today, I would tell you it's much, much simpler. Quality service. Towards each other. So these are some of the things that were used for us to know how
Yeah.
You business.
Yeah.
Just like you had said, so we've internalized actually.
So how then do we somehow move on from these things? Because sometimes when I think about Horana, the moment I started actually seeing collaboration as some of the strongest things that I can do.
Yeah.
Like most of the time nowadays, I try to look like, okay, how can I collaborate? You know, it's things that when I think about success, I'm like collaboration. You know, because I mean, you know, Because it's like, the more, how we join our hands together, we are able to
Achieve more.
achieve more.
Yeah,
Things beyond mo e leng gore ne re ka nagana teng, you know. And ke sheba ke re, why even today? Because nako nngwe it's decision tse ding re di etsa based on evidence ya ntho tse re di boneng. For example, like how bona di shopo tse qalang ke Basotho together, wow. And then after some time it's like, yo, where is that? Like, you say we left fela, you know, because why? You know, then when batho ba qala ba ikopanya e mongwe sa jela ditšhelete, it's like, then ke some of the things tse leng gore perhaps di ka nna tsa go drive to even view gore go kopana itlane. I would rather move ke le mong, you know, of which collectively ha ke sheba I accomplish more even faster, even effectively. Ha ke kopane le mamang. Okay, what do you have? Ntekang le barter system. Ke ko sebedisana mo fela. Okay, ke na le mabele, o na le dinawa, nka o fa tse kae hore o mfe tse kae, you know. Ntho tseno tse leng gore I don't necessarily have to have money to get things tse leng gore I need. I just need to, what do I have that I can give you? I want we can share together and build something.
You know, the funny part is, in a lot of places that I work, you have a team, though. You have people in your team, right? But everyone has a role, everyone has something that they're doing.
Yeah.
You understand? There's a lot of hokopana, hohongat. I think the question rather is, where now lemo to now kala we tatani, to kala rata culture how they kala weta. Because I'll say it this way. I'll say it this way, ne? So if you are a confident person, right? It's much harder for you to actually be faced because you're comfortable in your skin. So it doesn't mean much. Whatever the case, it's much easier for you to like let it go. But if you walk outside and you walk outside highly insecure about who you are, what you stand for, what you represent, it's easier for you to be shaken. So we have to understand that that element of being shaken is the one that we have to attack, right? Because, for instance, you go to certain cultures. In those certain cultures, you can't even build a cave, build a shop without hard. You can. I'm sure you can go to China, but tell me, what are the odds that you can build a shop, or what are the odds that you can build a chain shop as a black man in China? The odds. What are the odds that there are a lot of black entrepreneurs in China? Because they collectively understand who they are. You understand? They're like, okay, let whatever that is coming be for us first, right? But then once we don't understand that who we are, then it's much easier for us to be penetrated. Because everyone who shares it, as a collective gain, and we see that, dog. We don't want to, we might not even want to say it, but we see that in how we are treated by the police. We see that in terms of how hard it is to maneuver as a young person with an idea in this country. We see that in terms of even us going out to like look for funding, even us going home a hot man at thing or I ne go pafela into second. You understand? And that has a much historical view. It has a contemporary view as to why that is. It has so many multiple factors into us actually deviate or delving into it. But I would say people should start from where they are. Like this podcast, for example. You just interviewed someone that was very pivotal in my understanding on how I can build a brand. Some people are like, oh, yeah, it sounds boring, but you know, someone has to do it. And you know, you can only do from the point of what you know is best. And we're all just trying our best at this very moment in time. Ka politician blind to the way they were.
It's whatever. Yeah, I mean, like, okay, we're not basically ka re tla ho wena because ka Sankofa you try to basically ka Sankofa Institute you try to basically do that ya hore o now waking up is one of the most important thing hore wake somebody up, like make them at least realize it's only the association from there hore now what they do, but like bonyana if you know hore there's something like this, then oganga any action that follows that. So yeah, I mean, basically I would want you to just speak about the Sankofa Institute and basically what you stand for.
So Sankofa comes from an Adinkra language, Adinkra being the Akan people of Ghana presently. And it means it is wise to get from the past and use in the future. And that comes from the African's understanding of what is time. Time is not linear. Time, everything is happening all at once. You understand? That's why, like, you have communion with your ancestors. You understand? You have communion because they are there. That's why even in Basotho ways of burying their dead, they are given seeds for them to plant. Though that realm lives, the past lives in cohesion with the future. You understand? So I built some Sankofa off of that thinking, that it is important for us to maneuver the future, but knowing who we are from the values, just like communalism, more, Mohlomi. You understand? From self-love, Kabo Kwame Ture, Steve Bantu Biko. Because what I'll say is this: I lived abroad for like 2 years. And when you are there, it's very, very hard to maneuver because there are microaggressions. You'll see you. But you can't even put your finger on it. You understand? And if you lack the confidence on who you are, it's very, very easy for those systems to break you. You understand? Because you don't have something that reinforces who you are, something that says, no, stand in your Africanness. So I built some off of those systems, that it is important for us to stand in who we are as Africans, because that is literally mostly the very first thing that we have. So even till this day, how yeah to some family homes, you understand? And that speaks to who we are as Africans, because it is not just only you. That's what I'd like to see. You represent something that's much, much larger than just yourself. So there are ways that you can maneuver in the world representing something that's much, much larger than yourself. And then it's only a shame that once we realize this, once we are, let's say, the office in the whole, and now you're the only representative, Lesotho, and then only now it's clicking that how Leoma fair, like a Paulo loco fair, Ololokwa outside Lesotho, and you represent Lesotho. And everything else that you do and how you represent yourself from here on out would put an imprint on everyone else in the room on what they think about Lesotho. You understand? So I think it's very, very important that those elements we keep in mind and then we build. I mean, it's not easy. Because like no. I mean, yeah, relax, be who you are, but then still, though someone has to like say that this is who we are, this is what we represent, so that you have at least the knowledge and that you can take from what you can take from, and then you can maneuver however you want to maneuver.
What can you say about pride Mosotho? Because I feel like Nagongwe, yeah, I mean, there's a lot that happened to a point you get to be in rooms you realize yo I wanna Mosotho fela mona kapo ke represent le Basotho mona, you know. But I also think in tsetla ka pride ho keteletse o tseba hore na ho keteletse in the first place, or walk in that path, it means you have to be proud of it. And I think nakongwe kintina ha sa ngata ha nne ke le monyane ne ke fumana place tse leng hore the very same thing I said ka when you say ke Mosotho fela tjena, it means hore e sentse identify hore I ho ba Mosotho ko ba inferior. So now you start to walk and try to take identity ya batho be leng hore kapo culture tse leng hore kapo o so associate ha ba tlo ho associate le yona Bosotho of which cause ihlane sentse na le a certain narrative around it, so you try to stay away from it hore I nkampa ka ithuta ka shebella ntho tse itseng, not hore ke tsebe hore na ke ithuta hore Mosotho hana re hona le traditional healers go bua ka I don't want to think about traditional healers cause ho sontse na le picture e sentse ba paintile hore ke baloi, so e sentse re ke cancel, so I'll try to now gravitate towards e batlang e shabala hantle doctor. Yes sir. So yeah, I mean what are your remarks?
Join my classes. I'm selling something here.
Yeah.
I'm selling history. I'm selling Afrocentricity. Chair. I'm not selling. I would say that I'm teaching some of these systems. We're selling it would be counter to the actual ethos of an Africa. You understand? But we have to understand the systems that we live in currently, whereby might as well do. Which is why I'm thankful for platforms like this, because platforms like this actually saturate those teachings in a format where people can actually attain them. You understand? And yes, we'll keep doing those things, but yeah, though, there's a value in what I do. There's a value in what you do. There's a value in what your team does in terms of learning. We're not saying how trouble now to whatever the case might be, couple challenges won't be there. But we're trying our best to actually instill the little that we know.
Yeah. So they say knowledge is power. And I think the most important thing, knowledge makes you to wake up. If you know something, then you can wake up. But waking up, it's very important because it's the start of change.
Yeah, I never believe that, but I mostly believe in people attaining the highest forms of self. Like on Foster. When I continue half okay, I'm great information, but they will try more the way about more like level in here, because again, we have to think about it this way. Statistically, the Lesotho in terms of suicide rate is number one in the whole entire world. Statistically. So we could say there's a lot of mental health illnesses that are going about on Foster. And some people need so in order for them to catch that one gate that's missing for them. And that's what this is for. A sense of self-esteem. Like, I don't know. That means I do not know. On first time, or by now we mod. Night you wanna feel and do you for filming dawa to what random lawyer way. You understand? I'm not saying everyone has to know. To another life is on now. Our life they are trying to find you as long as you know comfortable. Because there's nothing even not of that. About how from that.
Thank you very much for your time, sir, for today. Yeah, and continue doing the amazing work that you do.
Sir,
Yeah.
sir, thank you.
Thank you.
Sadu.